Chairman Mao has always hated formalism and bureaucracy extremely. In his later years, this belief became more and more firm and decisive. On the whole, Chairman Mao has made classic explanations and conclusions on almost every aspect of the manifestation of formalism and bureaucracy. Get down to work. Each reread is rewarding. At the same time, Chairman Mao is also a master of flexible use of language. He discovers and asks questions straight to the point and hits the nail on the head. In the past 2 years, the author has searched Mao Zedong Chronicle, Mao Zedong Collected Works and Other Works, and more than 100 of Chairman Mao's arguments against formalism and bureaucracy, all of which have been published in the original form of quotations. Interested readers must have already experienced the demeanor of the great man. Today, when the whole party is actively fighting against formalism and bureaucracy, it is of great practical significance for us to learn and understand some classic theories of Chairman Mao. 1. About statistical reports. Resolutely stop the serious phenomenon of issuing statistical statements indiscriminately. On July 22, 1953, Chairman Mao drafted the commentary of the CPC Central Committee for forwarding the report on the inspection of rural statistical statements, pointing out party, government, and people at the county level and above statistical reports issued by high-level agencies have flooded the countryside and reached a level that is completely intolerable. Describe feasible methods for simplifying and controlling the reports, and resolutely put a stop to the serious phenomenon of excessive statistical reports. Collected Works of Mao Zedong Volume 6, page 283. Statistics every day, reporting every day. The statistics are not enough. On the evening of March 5, 1961, Chairman Mao made a speech at the enlarged meeting of the Standing Committee of the Political Bureau of the Central Committee. In the past, we always wanted numbers, how much of what was planted, and how much was produced. How much fat I have accumulated today, what will I do tomorrow, counting every day, reporting every day, and the statistics are not enough. It's just like that. If you order blindly, I will report randomly, the result will be exaggerated, which is not true at all. Mao Zedong Chronicle, 1949 to 1976, Volume 4, page 549. Today's notice will be required tomorrow, it can only be a false report. On March 13, 1961, Chairman Mao delivered a speech at the working meeting of the heads of the Central South Bureau, Southwest Bureau, and East China Bureau, called the South 3 District Meeting, emphasizing, I don't want to read those forms. I don't read the reports. It's really tasteless. Henan requires the subordinates to report the situation of the 6 types of cotters. Today's notice will be required tomorrow. The Statistics Department needs reports to conduct statistics, but we do not mainly rely on reports to understand the situation, nor can we rely on level-by-level reports. We must personally understand the situation at the grassroots level. It is bureaucratic to ask the subordinates to report figures every day. On August 25, 1971, Chairman Mao talked with Hua Qiaobang at the Donghu Guest House in Bachang. When Hua Qiaobang mentioned that the production of chemical fertilizers in the country was not good, Chairman Mao said, we have been talking about decentralization for more than 10 years, and the decentralization can't be done. The dictatorship can't be changed. The steel produced in the local area can't be divided. They will all be taken away, and the tractors will be destroyed. Don't let the province do it, such a big country, so many people, can the ministry manage it? Dictatorship kills people, so I advocate relying on the province to manage it. It's bureaucratic to ask the subordinates to report the accumulated fat figures every day. Mao Zedong Chronicle, 1949 to 1976, Volume 6, page 392. 2. Regarding Wen Shan Hui Hai, 1 instruction a year is formalism. On the evening of February 8, 1961, Chairman Mao talked with Zhang Hua, Lin Hujia, Tian Jiaying, etc. The issue of rural rectification. Lin Hujia, the secretary of the Zhejiang Provincial Party Committee Secretariat at the time, said, some of the blind commanders came from the province. Chairman Mao said, there are also some who went down from Beijing. I told Comrade Tan Jinlin not to start for 3 years. Conference of Agricultural Secretaries. Spring plowing production instruction, once a year, formalism, who will read it? The peasants will be hungry, and he doesn't know how to plow and sow. The problem is to come up with some specific measures and methods. Mao Zedong Chronicle, 1949-1976, Volume 4, page 538. Don't make so many documents. On the evening of March 5, 1961, Chairman Mao made a speech at the enlarged meeting of the Standing Committee of the Political Bureau of the Central Committee, pointing out, in the future, don't make so many documents, but compress them appropriately. Don't try to put them in one document. Talk about everything. In order to be comprehensive, talk about everything, but the result is that the problem is not solved. Don't approve too many documents. I was also an enthusiastic person in the past, and I approved many documents. I don't believe it. So many documents are approved every year. You have all read it, and comrades from all provinces have read it. There must be many who have not read it. Mao Zedong Chronicle, 1949 to 1976, Volume 4, pages 549 to 550. 3. Regarding investigation and research will still be carried out in 10,000 years. In addition to without investigation, you will have no right to speak, and if you don't do correct investigation, you will also have no right to speak. The most famous one should be this. That's it. On March 23, 1961, the Central Working Conference was held in Guangzhou. Chairman Mao interpreted his article Investigation Work, written in May 1930, paragraph by paragraph. This article has 7 paragraphs and more than 3,000 words. Chairman Mao's interpretation is nearly 7,000 words. This is the only article that Chairman Mao personally interpreted in his life. Chairman Mao said, in the stage of the democratic revolution, investigation and research must be carried out. In the stage of socialist revolution and construction, investigation and research must still be carried out. And in 10,000 years, investigation and research must still be carried out. The party committee has the right to drive them away when bureaucratic investigation methods are implemented. Chairman Mao emphasized that when going down for investigations, one must avoid making publicity, and one should not easily ask leaders at all levels to accompany them. Don't do old-fashioned investigations, and don't follow the set of patrols go out of the court, the earth shakes and the mountains shake. Chairman Mao hated formalist and bureaucratic investigations. He once commented, the party committee has the right to educate them when the bureaucratic and old-fashioned investigation method is disgusting. If the bureaucrats are disobedient, the party committee has the right to arrest them. Boom away. Mao Zedong Chronicle, 1949 to 1976, Volume 4, page 593. 4. Regarding ghost writing by secretaries, don't let others do it for you when writing articles. On March 28, 1964, Chairman Mao listened to the reports of the heads of the Shaanxi and Hebei provincial party committees on the situation of rural socialist education in Handan. When talking about bureaucracy, he said, some people don't write by themselves, but ask the secretary to do it for them. I never ask others to do it for me when I write articles. If I am sick and can't write, I just talk about it. Now the ministers and bureau chiefs in Beijing don't write. Let the secretary do all the work. The secretary can only find materials, and if some things are handled by the secretary, then the ministers and bureau chiefs can cancel it and let the secretary do it. Mao Zedong Chronicle, 1949 to 1976, Volume 5, page 332. 5. Concerning conveying feelings from the bottom to the top, the serious problem is that not only the bottom is cheating, but we believe. On November 23, 1958, Chairman Mao made a speech at the enlarged meeting of the Political Bureau of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China, pointing out, you must be honest. Be honest, don't cheat. The serious problem now is that not only the lower levels are cheating, but we believe it, from the central government, the provinces, the localities to the counties, mainly the top 3 levels believe it. I can't find it out. I hope that the 3 levels of the central government, the province, and the prefecture will understand this problem, have a clear head, and make a discount. Mao Zedong Chronicle, 1949 to 1976, Volume reporting the situation, I am the most tired. For leaders at all levels, what is the most tiring? Is it because of busy work? No. On June 24, 1959, Chairman Mao talked with Wang Renzhong and said, don't report the situation to me, I am the most tired. If you tell me the real situation in Hubei, I will not be tired. Mao Zedong Chronicle Volume, some words must be believed, nor can they be fully believed. On the afternoon of March 23, 1960, Chairman Mao talked with Lin Tai, Lu Zihao, etc. on the special train that stopped in Tianjin. When talking about the issue of the People's Commune, he said, the bureaucrats don't discuss with the masses, and curse, and force orders. For the following things, you just have to believe 7 out of 10 points, and you will suffer losses if you believe everything in 10 points, and you will be fooled. Mao Zedong Chronicle Volume 6, about the official atmosphere and style, we must scold those who are blinded by profit. On January 27, 1957, Chairman Mao pointed out in a speech at the meeting of party committee secretaries of provinces, municipalities, and autonomous regions, if an official becomes big, he can also make his mind faint. Being the first secretary is also a kind of advantage, and it is easy to make the head dizzy. When he is very dizzy, he has to use some method to scold him. Mao Zedong Collected Works Volume 7, page 191, Official air is the lowest taste. On May 20, 1958, Chairman Mao pointed out at the second plenary session of the 8th Central Committee, official air must be destroyed, official air must be swept away, and this official air must be swept away among cotters. Obey whoever is right, no matter if it is a manure picker, a coal digger, or a poor peasant, as long as the truth is in their hands, you must obey them. If you have a big official, but the truth is not in your hands, I can't obey you. Official air is a kind of low-level taste. Putting on airs, putting on qualifications, treating people unfairly, and looking down on others are the lowest tastes. This is not the noble spirit of communism. Collected Works of Mao Zedong Volume 7, page 378, don't always discipline people. On October 3, 1967, when Chairman Mao met with the delegation of the Congo, Brazzaville, government, he said, "There is one thing, you don't put on bureaucratic airs. I only ask you to put down the bureaucratic airs, and communicate with the common people, workers, farmers, students, soldiers, and subordinates should all be treated as equals. Don't just scold people at every turn. You can explain why you should scold them if there is a reason." Mao Zedong Chronicle, 1949 to 1976, Volume 6, p. 129. 7. Regarding the mass line, one level runs from top to bottom, and it does not come from the masses. In his speech at the enlarged meeting of the Standing Committee, he pointed out, in the past we listened to you, but you did not investigate yourself. It runs from top to bottom, not from the masses at all, but from his mind. Mao Zedong Chronicle, 1949 to 1976, Volume 4, page 591. The masses don't care what you are officials, just look at your policies. On December 5, 1963, Chairman Mao met with the Colombian Worker School Peasant Movement Study Delegation in the Great Hall of the People, and pointed out, the masses don't care what kind of official you are, and they don't care what you wear. What kind of clothes, just look at your policies. They don't care what party you are. The Communist Party's policies are wrong, and they will scold you. Where does knowledge come from? Knowledge comes from the masses. If we don't conduct research, I just don't understand anything. Mao Zedong Chronicle, 1949 to 1976, Volume 5, page 287. 8. About reading and studying. If you do business every day, you must lose your way. Cotters fall into businessism and seem to be busy, but in fact they are exhausted, and ineffective. It is not only useless, but also harmful, often becoming a breeding ground for formalism and bureaucracy. Not long after the founding of New China, Chairman Mao once said, in view of the fact that we still have transactionalism in our work, we should study hard. The 8th volume of Collected Works of Mao Zedong has in Article 18 issues discussed at the Lushan Conference, which was written by Mao Zedong. The chairman believes that the important issues that should be discussed, the first issue is reading. Chairman Mao said, "We advocate reading, so that these comrades will not be like ants on a hot pot, falling into transactionalism all year round, making them very busy, and giving them time to think about problems." On February 6, 1962, Chairman Mao presided over the Central Work Conference in the Great Hall of the People. When he talked about the lesson of the past few years that he was busy with affairs, did not pay attention to study, and his thoughts were easily vulgarized, Chairman Mao said, "If you don't pay attention to learning theory, and do affairs every day, you will definitely lose your way." Mao Zedong Chronicle, 1949-1976, Volume 5, page 84. 9. About the work report. Whoever wants to read a manuscript, I will doze off to show my objection. The advantages of oral reports. First, there are more truths and less clichés, Chairman Mao did not like to report according to the scriptures. He once clearly said, "Whoever wants to read the manuscript, I will doze off to express my opposition." Reporting. When he learned that Chairman Mao asked very detailed questions, Kang Xian took the time to prepare materials and wrote the report outline. He recalled, "I read a paragraph according to the outline, and the chairman interrupted and said, 'Don't read it anymore, I also have books here, so just talk about it, in progress.'" 10. About bureaucracy. Don't be contaminated with bureaucratic style. In February 1950, Chairman Mao visited the Soviet Union and returned to China, and stopped briefly in Harbin, Songjiang Province, merged with Heilongjiang Province in 1954. After listening to the reports of provincial and municipal leaders, at the request of the person in charge of the Songjiang Provincial Party Committee, Comrade Mao Zedong wrote an inscription for the Provincial Party Committee, "Learning, struggling, and don't contaminate bureaucratic style." This is the first time that Comrade Mao Zedong wrote an inscription for a local provincial party committee after the founding of New China. Mao Zedong Chronicle, 1949-1976, Volume 1, page 97. Whoever commits bureaucracy, the masses have a reason to remove him. On November 15, 1956, Chairman Mao attended the second plenary session of the 8th Central Committee and made a concluding speech, emphasizing, "We must be vigilant, not to breed bureaucratic style, and not to form an aristocratic class that is divorced from the people. Whoever commits bureaucracy will not to solve the problems of the masses, scold the masses, oppress the masses. If he does not reform, the masses have reason to get rid of him. I say that getting rid of him is very good and should be done away." Mao Zedong Chronicle, 1949-1976, 3rd volume, p. 34. This statement is very heavy. From the perspective of post-historical development, it is understandable that Chairman Mao resolutely took some decisive measures when the bureaucracy at all levels from top to bottom was really intolerable. 01 If you command blindly, I will report randomly. In the past, we always needed figures: how much was planted, how much was produced, how much fertilizer was accumulated today, and what will be done tomorrow. We counted and reported every day, and the statistics were not enough. Hangzhi is like that: if you command blindly, I will report randomly, and the result will be exaggerated, which is not true at all. Including the documents issued by our central government, the same is true. Speech at an enlarged meeting of the Standing Committee of the Political Bureau of the Central Committee on the evening of March 5, 1961. 02 1 Spring plowing production instruction per year is formalism. Lin Hujia, the secretary of the Zhejiang Provincial Party Committee Secretariat at the time, said, "Some of the blind commanders came from the province." Mao Zedong said, "Some went down from Beijing." In October 1959, a meeting of agricultural secretaries was held, and a set of documents was prepared, which was issued without approval. I told Comrade Tan Jinlin not to hold a meeting of agricultural secretaries for 3 years. Spring plowing production instructions, 1 a year, formalism: who will look at it? Farmers will be hungry, he does not know how to plow and plant. The problem is to come up with some concrete measures and methods. On the evening of February 8, 1961, talking with Zhang Hua, Lin Hujia, Tian Jiaying, etc. about the issue of rural rectification and communal reform. 03 Don't make so many files. Don't make so many files in the future, but compress them appropriately. Don't try to cover everything in one document. In order to be comprehensive, we talk about all kinds of problems, but the result is that the problems are not solved. Don't approve too many documents. In the past, I was also an enthusiastic person and approved many documents. For another example, every year when spring plowing comes, the central government will issue instructions, and the state council will issue orders, so why don't we do it this year? I say it's all redundant. Just a few articles per year, not too many. I don't believe it. You have read so many documents approved every year, and comrades from all provinces have read them. There must be many who haven't seen it. Speech at an enlarged meeting of the Standing Committee of the Political Bureau of the Central Committee on the evening of March 5, 1961. 04 It is better to send less files. Hu Qiaolu said, Comrade Peng Zhen called yesterday, planning to send an internal party document on the food issue to the branch for discussion, to talk about the food situation, the disaster situation, and the temporary difficulties, asking everyone to do everything possible to find a solution, It is better to find those who work less or do not work to save food for those who do work. Mao Zedong said, it is better for the central government to issue fewer documents, and don't do it. Once the central government writes a document, it is tantamount to an order to send it out, and the bottom will be arrested, and a conference call will be held, etc. As a result, a large number of problems have arisen again. I don't see this document as good. On the afternoon of February 25, 1961, meeting with Tao Zhu, Hu Qiaomu, Tian Jiaying, etc. to discuss drafting the working regulations of rural people's communes. 05 It is dangerous to make a decision without doing research. Enthusiasm still needs to be drummed up. If you want to seek truth from facts, you need to investigate and research. The water is muddy, so I don't know if there are any fish, so I just want to make a big effort to investigate and study. Exaggeration, bureaucracy, and lack of understanding must be completely overcome. In the past few years, we have not talked much about investigation and research, which is a loss. It is unreliable and dangerous to formulate guidelines and policies not based on investigation and research, and you may have uncertainties. You may know the numbers, but you don't know the actual situation. On the evening of January 29, 1961, a conversation with relevant personnel of Jiangsu Provincial Party Committee and Nanjing Municipal Party Committee. 06 Where bureaucracy can't reach, things are better. Hu Qiaomu said, the experience of the past few years is that the more remote places are probably the better ones. Mao Zedong said, it is a place that bureaucracy cannot reach, a place that cannot be reached by subjectivism, and a place that cannot be reached by blind command. On the afternoon of February 11, 1961, talking with Zhangping Hua, Hu Qiaomu, etc. about Hunan's rural rectification and organization. 07 Don't be busy with business every day. The first secretary must do research and do some ideological work. If the first secretary is too busy, he will choose another secretary to do it. All in all, be a person with a little more peace of mind, and don't be busy with affairs every day. On the afternoon of February 11, 1961, talking with Zhangping Hua, Hu Qiaomu, etc. about Hunan's rural rectification and organization. 08 Leave the little things aside and focus on research. I hope that after the comrades go back, they will conduct investigations and studies, put aside trivial matters, and spend part of their time with a few assistants to investigate and study 1 or 2 production teams and 1 or 2 communes. To conduct investigations is to gain confidence in one's mind, and one cannot act without a foundation. To understand the situation, you need to see with your eyes, ask with your mouth, and take notes with your hands. Over the years, our comrades have not done research and research work. If we do not do investigation and research, but only rely on imagination and estimation, our work will have no basis. Therefore, comrades are invited to vigorously investigate and study after returning home, proceed from reality in everything, and do not make up your mind if you are not sure. Speech at the Central Working Conference on January 13, 1961. 09 Do a little more real work. There are always differences between rural areas and cities, and between agriculture and industry. Agriculture cannot direct production like industry, and agriculture cannot use telephone calls to direct production. In rural areas, teleconferences are often held to assign tasks, which are actually dead orders. It can kill. In my opinion, leading production should be more passive than active. If you have time, you can read documents, read more books, study more, and do more practical work. In short, don't direct blindly. On the afternoon of March 7, 1961, talking with Wang Renshong about the rural situation in Hubei. 10 typical surveys to do in person. I see that you still don't understand the above 2 issues of egalitarianism, don't you? Am I wrong? Most of the first secretaries of provinces, prefectures, counties, and communes are also like this. The reason is that they are busy with routine work and do not conduct typical investigations in person. They are satisfied with listening to reports at the prefectural and county levels at meetings, reading written reports at prefectural and county levels, or being satisfied with surveys at the superficial level. Comrades in the Central Committee generally make the same mistakes. I hope that comrades will correct this from now on. Of course, my own faults must be resolutely corrected. Letter to Liu Shaokai, Zhou Enlai, Chen Yun, Deng Xiaoping, Peng Zhen, and others on the morning of March 13, 1961. 11 Investigation and research should follow the mass line. In the past, we listened to you, but you did not investigate it yourself, and you also listened to others, so you have to investigate it yourself. Only by investigating and researching and following the mass line can we get a good refund. The mass line is very important. Lenin is run from top to bottom, level by level, not from the masses at all, but from his mind. Speech at an enlarged meeting of the Standing Committee of the Political Bureau of the Central Committee attended by the first secretaries of the Central Bureau on the afternoon of May 23, 1961. 12. The purpose is to solve the problem, not to report. We have made mistakes in the past few years, first of all because the situation is unclear. The reasons for the defeats in the history are mostly unknown. In recent years, I suffered a lot from unknown circumstances, and the price I paid was very high. Some officials, and we no longer do research and research. I've done some research, but mostly just floating around and reading reports. Now, I want to set up a few points, a few bases for investigation, and go down to make some friends. I don't have the right to speak on urban issues, and I have long wanted to investigate a few factories. I made an appointment with you to do some investigation and research on non-stable food bases. The purpose is to solve problems, not for reports. There is one thing about reports. Statistics departments need reports to conduct statistics, but we do not mainly rely on reports to understand the situation, nor can we rely on level-by-level reports. We must personally understand the situation at the grassroots level. On March 13, 1961, a speech at the working meeting of the heads of the Central South Bureau, Southwest Bureau, and East China Bureau of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China, called the South 3 District Conference. 13. Not allowed to reflect on behalf of the policy. During this period of time, the bad style of exaggerating and substituting sentiments for policies has once again risen. This is a major lesson, and leading comrades at all levels in the party must never ignore or forget this lesson that has been paid for. March 23, 1961. Amendments to the instruction letter on investigation work. 14. Violation of the laws will be punished. Regardless of what Marx, Engels, Lenin, Stalin, Mao Zedong, Yu, Cooks, and Grooms say, only if it works among the masses. Those who violate the laws of objective things and insist on implementing them will be punished. If you are punished, you must review it. Now we are punished, the land, people, and livestock are thin. What is 3 thin not punished? The current 3 thin are mainly in charge of the central government and myself, and I bear the main responsibility. You guys here, comrades in the region, if it's 40% or 60%, you'll have 40% of it. I have been telling him these words for several years, and you should be prepared. If you get tired of listening to them, I will stop talking about them. Speech at an enlarged meeting of the Standing Committee of the Political Bureau of the Central Committee in the morning of June 8, 1961, attended by the first secretaries of the Central Bureaus. 15. If you get the masses, you get the cotters. The commune should not be divided into small or small, and it should not be divided into small and small. Don't listen to the cotters, but mainly listen to the masses. The cotters are definitely not willing to be divided. They will find out many reasons, saying that there is no house, what difficulties they have, and so on. As long as we get the masses, we get cotters. What's wrong with us delegating the command of production? If according to the opinions of the cotters, private plots should not be retained, flat-scaled items should not be refunded, and production control should not be delegated. In this way, we will not be able to gain the masses and win the trust of the people. Speech at an enlarged meeting of the Standing Committee of the Political Bureau of the Central Committee on the evening of March 5, 1961. Remarks, the speeches, conversations, instructions, etc. of Comrade Mao Zedong above are all excerpted from Volume 4 of Mao Zedong Chronicle, 1949 to 1976, which was published by Central Publishing House in December 2013. Red Lens and Du Xiaoxian. Mao Yuanxin. When I heard the news of Lao Du's death, I recalled a meeting more than 10 years ago. At the end of the 1990s, a friend sent me the book Red Lens in 2 volumes, saying that it contained my precious photos. I opened it and saw that the book was published by Liaoning People's Publishing House in March 1998, signed, written by Gu Beizai, photographed by Du Xiaoxian. Underneath the 3 big words Red Lens on the cover, there is a subtitle, National Affairs in the Eyes of Zhongnan Photographers. The title page has the solemn inscriptions of Nai Rongzhen and Su Jianjian, witness of history and faithful reproduction of history. It can be seen that this book is of great historical value in the eyes of the publisher. Mao Yuanxin stood beside Chairman Mao's body. After opening the book, because my friend said that there are precious photos of me in the book, I first flipped through the pictures in the book. Sure enough, at the top of page 667 of the second volume, there is a photo of me standing next to the dead body of the chairman, attached photo 2. I haven't seen this photo before, it is so precious. Looking at the photos carefully, my thoughts can't help but go back to more than 30 years ago. Life is full of mixed flavors, rolling ups and downs in my chest. Returning to reality from the past, my first reaction is to thank Lao Du from the bottom of my heart, for he left me with that unforgettable moment with the camera. Du Xiaoxian is a photographer stationed in Zhongnanhai by Xinhua News Agency. I have been in contact with him many times and we have gradually become familiar with each other. And because he succeeded Shi Xiehua as Zhang Qing's photography teacher, we met many times at Zhang Qing's residence in Diaotai and became friends. I remember one time, the long table in the center of the living room was covered with color photos that he helped Zhang Qing develop and enlarge. In front of Zhang Qing, he explained to me how well the lighting of a certain photo was, and the angle of view of a certain photo was well chosen, and he was full of praise. I think a few of them are really good shots, and I don't think so. I have never learned the principle of color photography, such terms as color tone and color temperature. Lao Du talked about it with great interest, but I half understood it. Zhang Qing reprimanded Lao Du face to face, good is good, bad is bad. Don't flatter. I found Lao Du a little embarrassed, and I smoothed things over for him and said, Lao Du is an expert. From the professional point of view of photography, I'm afraid he said it still makes sense. Staring at the photo in the book in my hand, I thought, next time I go to Beijing, I must ask him to meet, express my thanks to my old friend in person, and ask him to make one for me too. Turning over a page, the picture at the bottom of page 668, attached figure 3, surprised me. The photo with 4 corners of a rectangle, the upper right corner was cut off obliquely with a knife, and turned into a pentagonal photo. This is really a miracle in the history of news pictures. Looking closely at the content of the photo, Zhang Chunqiao, Wang Hongwen, and Zhang Qing stood in a row from left to right in front of Chairman Mao's body. From Zhang Qing to the right, there are 5 people who were beheaded, cut at the waist, and had their legs broken. Judging from the incomplete limbs, it is difficult to identify who the 5 people are. The caption below the picture reads, "The Gang of 4 Eyes are focused on Mao Zedong's corpse who will never see the world." Seeing this picture description, cannot help but puzzling. It was said to be the Gang of 4, but there were 8 people standing there, and only 3 of them could be seen clearly. I don't know what explanation the other 5 people gave. If they also belong to the Gang of 4, why should they be beheaded? If you don't belong to the Gang of 4, why is the description of the picture written as the eyes of the Gang of 4 are gathered? Where are the eyes of the other 5 people gathered? Looking at the attributive "I will never see this world" added in front of Mao Zedong's body in the explanation, it seems to express a certain special psychological complex of the author. Combined with the author's position and tone that I have read throughout the book since then, I don't know. Is it gloating, or some kind of unspeakable resentment? The old Du in my heart is still the original impression more than 30 years ago. When we took pictures in front of the chairman's body that year, he and I felt exactly the same no matter what we expressed or what we knew about each other. How did it become like this now? The vicissitudes of life. Without a common language, friends will become strangers. Eager to see him and express his gratitude, became dazed. Well, this reminds me not only to look at the photos, but also to read the descriptions of the photos and read the articles outside the camera. The words in the book are all written in Du Xiaoxian's first person. Although the cover states that a person named Gu Beizai wrote the article, it is still like listening to Lao Du's own narration. As a photographer stationed by Xinhua News Agency in Zhongnanhai, Lao Du was also a photography teacher trusted by Zhang Qing during the Cultural Revolution. Except for a few photographers who are otherwise specified, the pictures in the book are basically taken by Lao Du himself. Is there any doubt about the authenticity of the content of the above article? I have not personally experienced the events before the Cultural Revolution described in the book, so it is difficult to comment. But after the Cultural Revolution, especially after 1968, many of the events I witnessed were personally experienced, but not all of them were as described in the book. Although I have not personally experienced some things, according to common sense, people with a little brains will question them. For example, the book mentions that in February 1976 Jiang Qing went to the swimming pool to meet the chairman. What did the old couple say and do at that time, and there was no third party present, let alone invite photographers to take pictures? How could Lao Du be so specific? Did you really install a bug around the chairman? It seems to be mentioned in his book, and was later quoted in many articles, that one of the charges charged against him in the early days of the Cultural Revolution was lurking around the central leadership with a bug. After reading this, I just want to laugh. If he was really charged with this kind of crime, would it be possible for Jiang Qing to keep him by his side and trust him so much? Such suspected false words abound in the book. A year later, I had the opportunity to go to Beijing and live in the Hunan provincial office in Beijing over the Madian Bridge. Some staff members around the chairman came to see me, and Du Xiaoxian was occasionally mentioned during the conversation. I said that in his book Red Lens, there was a photo of me next to the chairman's body, and I wondered if I could get it for me. They immediately contacted Du Xiaoxian by phone, and Lao Du said that he must come to the Hunan office to see me. After dinner the next day, Lao Du came to my residence. An old friend we haven't seen in over 20 years, we are both very excited. Lao Du took out a big envelope. To my surprise, besides the photo I wanted, there were 2 other photos of me in it. One of them is the one in the book Red Lens in which 5 people were beheaded and cut in half, and it is a complete color photo. This time I saw clearly that the ones on Jiang Qing's right who were beheaded were Hua Qiaobang and me, and those on the right who were beheaded and had their legs broken were Yao Wenyuan, Chen Zilian, and Wang Dongxing. I held Lao Du's hand tightly with both hands and expressed my heartfelt thanks to him. Lao Du was also very excited. He looked me up and down and said, You are in good. I am relieved. It is rumored that one of your legs was broken. I said, Don't listen to the rumors, I have never been injured in prison. I was beaten. It was just more than 10 years of imprisonment, and my spine was sick, which caused necrosis of the femoral head, so I couldn't move more easily. We recalled some past events more than 20 years ago and chatted happily. It was Lao Du who first asked me, Do you have my red lens? I can give you a set. I said, My friend has given it to me. I learned about this photo from the book. What do you think of this book? Lao Du asked frankly. Do you want to hear the truth or lie? I asked. Of course it's the truth. Old Du said. How to say? I hesitated. It's an old friend, let's talk straight. Lao Du patted my arm and said bluntly. The photos in your book record the true history of our party. As the inscriptions of the 2 old men said, they can be said to be priceless. I will give you 120 points. The reason why I say this is because in the early 1970s, once in Jiang Qing's living room in Diaotai, Jiang Qing, Lao Du, and I discussed several camellia photos taken by Jiang Qing. One of them was very good. I said it could score 100 points, and Lao Du said it could score 120 points. Probably Lao Du also remembered the story of scoring that time, and a knowing smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. However, I continued, as a historical material for recording history, the text in your book is really not flattering. The combination of photos and text is worth 50 points at most. It depends on old friends. For the sake. Your words are worthless. How can you say that? Old Du's eyes widened. Lao Du, who was already a bit stuttering, stuttered even more in a hurry because of the unexpected. Old Du, I said, if you publish a book of pictures instead of this book with a lot of miscellaneous words, in addition to the photos you took, each photo will at most have a brief description, including the time, place, and identity of the people in the picture are all enough. If such a collection of photos is published as historical materials, it will be an invaluable treasure, and it can get 120 points. Lao Du shook his head, apparently unable to accept my statement. You were just a photojournalist for Xinhua News Agency, I said. Your task is to use the lens to faithfully record the historical moments of every important event. As for describing the ins and outs of those historical events, and evaluating those events right and wrong are not your job. According to my impression, you have a fairly high professional level in photojournalism, but not that high level of political and writing skills. Moreover, the conditions and environment of your work, it is impossible to be exposed to such lots of insider politics. Lao Du listened to me silently, neither shaking his head nor nodding. For example, I said, some meeting was held at the top of the central government. Your task is to take a few photos of the meeting before and after the meeting according to the arrangement of the meeting, and then leave the venue. You are not an official member of the meeting. How do you know how the meeting was held, who said what, who looked what, and who was thinking in his heart? But in your book, these contents are written vividly. Those words are not made up by you, you just copied it from what others said later. Isn't it? There are also some meetings, without your task of taking pictures, you can't even get involved, so how would you know the inside story of the meeting? For example, the meeting where the commanders of the 8 major military regions were transferred, it is a personal participant, and I have never invited you to take photos. How do you know the real situation of the meeting? Didn't you listen to or read something written by others later, and you copied it and processed it to become your own stuff? Am I right? Old Du nodded his head reluctantly. I went on to say, since it was a few years later that I heard the copied text from others, then with your identity as a photographer in Zhongnanhai, has it become a real history? If the text written by others originally is it wrong or fake? Even with your real photos, can it become a real historical file? I noticed the inscriptions of 2 respected old men, saying that it is a witness of history, which must refer to your photos. Naishui's inscription also specifically indicated that it was written for your photograph collection, not the words you wrote. I'm afraid they didn't even read the pile of words you copied from what you heard. I have read it, let alone verified it one by one. Do you think it is? The real value of this book lies in your photos. Old Du, the text outside the lens not only does not add value, but gives you a great deal discounted because much of it does not stand up to scrutiny and the test of history. Lao Du just listened and didn't argue with me anymore. It seems that he is still an honest man. I put some water in his teacup, handed him a cigarette, and lit it for him. The 2 smoked in silence and sat relatively silent for a while, neither of them said anything. Alas. Old Du sighed deeply, but he hesitated to speak, as if he had something to hide. I changed the subject and asked him, do you know that book published by Li Zisui in the United States? I know, Lao Du said, it's nonsense. The Americans used his status to deliberately vilify the chairman. I have the same opinion as you. I said, it is said that Li Zisui's original manuscript only wrote about political issues, and those messy things in life were added by people with ulterior motives. I've heard that too. Old Du said, as soon as the book came out, he died of a heart attack. I think he was frightened to death by himself. Li Zisui, I continued, is just a doctor sent by the health bureau. Except for illness, the chairman never likes to have a doctor around, let alone let him intervene in the political issues of the high-level central government. In many meetings of the high-level central government, he couldn't even go to the venue, so how would he know about the meeting? To be honest, he's not as good as you, and you might even take photos before or after the meeting as required. Right. N. Old Du nodded affirmatively. It seems that there is still some common language between old friends. I turned back to the topic of Red Lens and said, don't you think your book has some similarities with Li Zisui's book? Old Du suddenly stood up from the sofa, and said angrily, how can you compare me with Li Zisui? I also hurriedly stood up and pulled him to sit down with a smile. Don't be angry, don't be angry. Lao Du, I'm just saying that neither you nor he are really involved in some important activities of the central government. However, you and him, but they all commented there in the tone of a personal participant. What? It's nothing more than taking advantage of your identity as the photographer of Zhongnanhai, who is the doctor who works next to the chairman, so as to increase readers' trust in the authenticity and reliability of your writing. Agree. On this point, you are basically the same, right? Lao Du didn't comment, just sat there and smoked heavily. However, I said, you are fundamentally different from him. He vented his strong hatred for Chairman Mao, Premier Zhou, and even the entire Chinese Communist Party, while you still support the chairman, the premier, and the Communist Party, but you only show your hatred for the Communist Party. Gang of Four, especially strong dissatisfaction with Zhang Cheng. Am I right? Old Du was still non-committal, puffing on his cigarette. I said, let's just talk about Zhang Cheng. Although she also reprimanded you, I generally feel that your relationship was quite good at that time. She praised you in front of me many times. And you also respected Jiang Qing very much at that time. It even went to the point of obeying. It was Jiang Qing's photography teacher, but later it was more like her accompanying photographer. Excluding foreign affairs activities, your personal contacts with Jiang Qing, the photos you took for Jiang Qing, and the photos you developed and enlarged for her. As for your personal contacts with the chairman and the prime minister, I'm afraid there are more photos than you took of them. Is this true? But judging from the text in your book, from the very beginning of your contact with Jiang Qing, you have had a strong sense of antagonism, dissatisfaction, even hatred. Is this in line with history? If your relationship with Jiang Qing is really like what is written in your book, you also know that Jiang Qing has such overly sensitive nerves and such a domineering temper personality. She has already put a hat on you and told you to get out. But the fact is that she has always trusted you until the chairman passed away and she was arrested. Am I right? Old Du was still non-committal, but his face became more and more ugly. For example, I went on, you said in your book that Jiang Qing changed your name from Du Xiaoxian to Du Xiaoxian in 1974. What is your attitude? It is written in the book how angry you were at that time. You have the courage to change your name or surname when you are a real man. He also said that because he couldn't bear Jiang Qing's unreasonable behavior imposed on you, he went to the hospital to report Jiang Qing to Premier Zhou, who was seriously ill in bed. After being persuaded by the Prime Minister, the name was changed in humiliation. Is that how it was written? Old Du nodded slightly. Is this a historical fact? I continued, I was there when Jiang Qing changed your name. It didn't seem to be 1974, but it was probably around 1971 or earlier. I happened to be in Beijing at that time. At Diaotai in the entrance hall of building number 10, there are several staff members from a squadron. You ran out of Jiang Qing's living room and shouted excitedly, Comrade Jiang Qing personally changed my name. The two characters have a feudal color. You still picked up the pen and explained to me beautiful beauty, salty and Xianyang while writing. At that time, you were so happy that several people present saw it. Am I right? At that time, the Prime Minister was not sick and hospitalized. Just for this little shit, I went to Premier Zhou, who was severely ill in bed, and I would believe it. Jiang Qing had a hobby of changing people's names, but she only gave them to her most trusted people at the time. People changed their names, such as changing Hao Liang to Hao Liang, and changing Yinlu to Yinglu. At that time, you can get such a treatment, it's too late to be happy, and there is no trace of anger and dissatisfaction. You even brought Premier Zhou in as a shield for your name change. Are you worthy of the premier? Old Du's pimple-ridden face was flushed red, but he just stood there sullenly, gasping for breath. Aren't I telling the truth? I asked him. After holding back for a while, he finally raised his head. Alas. Old Du sighed, Yuan's in. Just because of my special relationship with Jiang Qing, just because of those photos, you know how much I have suffered. After smashing the Gang of Four, say it's Jiang Qing's death, his best friend, who has been censored and criticized for several years, and he won't let him go. Don't write like this, people, can people let me go? It turned out to be like this. I said, it turns out that you have been implicated so much. I really don't know anything about it. I said sincerely, I understand your difficulties. I'm sorry, I said too much just now, please forgive me. Forget it. My suffering is far worse than, compared to yours. Old Du said. Both of them gradually calmed down, passed cigarettes to each other, and lit cigarettes. Lao Du is different from me. He is just a photojournalist of Xinhua News Agency. He was sent by the organization to work next to Jiang Qing. The special relationship with Jiang Qing has been censored and criticized for several years. Driven by various factors, it is understandable to publish such a book to show that he and Jiang Qing have drawn a clear line. I only hope that readers can understand his difficulties. The photos in the book are real history, and many additional words are just bubbles created by Lao Du to wash his innocence. After all, the bubble will still be washed away by the wind and rain of history. I patted Lao Du on the knee and said, a friend who has read the book Red Lens asked me if Du Xiaoxian also participated in the arrest of the Gang of Four. Nothing. Old Du interrupted me, will people believe me? I also said to that friend, it's totally impossible. I continued, and that friend said, it's possible. Didn't Du Xiaoxian say in the book that when he took pictures of Wang Hongwen's work, he had already noticed this is the vice chairman of the party busy with intrigue and conspiracy to usurp the party and power? Old Du's face was full of helplessness, and he shook his head dumbfounded. I picked up the color photo of the 8 people next to the chairman's body from the coffee table, and used the back of another photo to cover the upper right corner of it according to the way he handled it in the book, and said to Lao Du, "This is the picture in the book. The way the photos are processed is unprecedented in the history of news photos. What do you think? That's decided by the publishing house, otherwise the books will not be released." Lao Du said. "The text under the picture, why did it say that? What does eyes focus on the body of Mao Zedong, who will never see the world? What does it mean?" I asked. "Is that how it was written?" No way." He asked suspiciously. "Exactly. If you don't believe me, go back and check." I replied. That is the manuscript that Gu Beizai and the publishing house made, and I didn't even look at it carefully." He said, "You know, how could I have such a high, literary level? Those texts. The text part was all written by Gu Beizai, and some of them were rewritten according to the publishing house's request. Don't change it like that, they won't not publish it for you." I see. The subtitle of the book Red Lens is National Affairs in the Eyes of Zhongnanhai Photographers. Can it be said that the national affairs in the eyes of Zhongnanhai photographer Lao Du mainly refers to the pictures in the book, while the text in the book in part? It may be more accurate to say that it is the state affairs in the eyes of the female writer Gu Beizai. Lao Du needs Ms. Gu to help him apply foam-rich washing liquid to cleanse his relationship with Zhang Cheng. And Ms. Gu probably needs Lao Du's Zhongnanhai photographer's signboard to improve the credibility of her writing. Their respective needs brought the two parties together, and Red Lens, a hybrid of a large number of real pictures and a lot of false text, was born. I sent Lao Du to the elevator entrance, and said, "You said it, old friend, tell the truth. I said too much, don't take it seriously. I sincerely thank you for those 3 photos, and I will keep them forever." Old Du smiled wryly unnaturally, turned his head and went into the elevator without even shaking hands.